Hey, welcome back to the Gilbertson Aero Factory. Today is Tuesday, the 12th of November, 2024, and I've got Tim of T-Flight here with me, who came over for a shop visit. Any thoughts, Tim?
Much cleaner. Definitely much cleaner than my shop right now.
Tim thinks that my shop is much cleaner than his shop, but I literally spent like 3 hours yesterday just cleaning, so you can tell from the last video that I have once again reconfigured the shop for getting into the aileron business. So I'm going to get on that, doing that. Tim's going to go back and work on his
right aileron. Yeah, I need to start the final assembly of the right one.
I have some trepidation about starting these ailerons because the way that Tim lets out a big sigh every time he says aileron.
It's like everything on the wings. You do something that's fun, you get to do it again. You do something horrible, you still have to do it again because there's two of everything. So
I think everything I do in this is fun and horrible at the same time, so that's how that's going to go. Anyways, I'm going to get into it. Tim's going to go work on his airplane, and here, let's build an airplane.
All right, let's get into it. Super cool having Tim come over today. We hung out for probably, I don't know, maybe more than an hour talking about all this stuff. And I learned a lot from Tim as well, which is great. He's moved ahead of me in this build, and today, earlier, or last night, I suppose, he published the completion of one of his ailerons. And I'll talk mostly about that kind of stuff because what I'm doing here is stuff that you see me do before. The construction of the ailerons is very, very similar to the construction of the elevators in the beginning, and then it becomes more complex. But anyways, it's a whole bunch of stiffeners, which we've done a few times before. It's a very simple but time-consuming task of cutting all of those stiffeners out of a handful of single pieces, and then cutting them down, forming them, and whatnot. So, yeah, you've seen all that happen before. I will say, as this goes along, you'll see me do something that, as I was doing, I realized was completely unnecessary. And this isn't me trying to lob a grenade in the primer wars, but I have been priming mating surfaces. It's not really that important to me, but it was something that I started with the empennage, so I've sort of continued with it at any rate. As you all know, it's been a long time since I've done any building, and so once I finished all of this trimming, cutting, cleaning the edges and shaping these stiffeners, then I got a nice little tub of soapy water and started washing them and put on latex gloves, and then realized that that's really unnecessary for what I'm doing with this rattle can primer. That was a habit that I had created when I was working on the tanks. That's a different story because any oils from your skin can cause that Pro Seal to not get a good bond with the surface. So yeah, I went ahead and finished doing it that way today because that's how they were already in the soapy water and whatnot. But yeah, it's an old habit from the month that I spent building the tanks. So yeah, if you're at that stage and you are working with Pro Seal, yes, that is like prepping for surgery in terms of how clean you want that stuff to be. But for spraying some self-etching primer on these parts, yeah, scuff them, wipe them down with some acetone, get on with your life. It probably would have saved me an hour of what turned out to be 4.5 hours today to do these 32 skin stiffeners. So, and that's all the stiffeners for both ailerons. So that part is done. They're in the garage right now, drying overnight. And so tomorrow we'll get into a little bit more prep of the skin and the dimpling of the stuff and the whatnot, and probably the back riveting of the stuff as well. So we'll see how far we get. You see that I put a little KN95 mask on. Lots and lots and lots of really fine aluminum dust blowing around in the air there, and probably not super good to be breathing that in. So I finally, I mean, yes, right now what I'm working on is the Scotch-Brite wheel. Yes, that does create some aluminum dust, but the direction that the wheel's going and is fine. Is it? It's not really that big of a deal. But prior to this stage, I'll describe the stages here. At first, you saw me at the workbench over there, and I was just drawing the cut lines. And then I went over to the bandsaw, and each strip has 4 stiffeners on it. So you separate them all out, draw the cut lines, go back to the bandsaw, and just do a rough cut along the line. You're cutting angles out basically to make these stiffeners. So first the bandsaw, then I go over to the disc sander to get the big bulk of it down close to the line, and then I go over to the Scotch-Brite wheel and fine tune it and clean up all the edges. But yeah, the disc sander was throwing a lot of aluminum dust up in the air and was bothering my eyes, and I was thinking, man, breathing this stuff can't be awesome. Anyways, safety third, you know how it goes. So anyways, yeah, Tim coming out. I had been hoping to get back over. I went and visited Tim's shop. Boy, I've lost track of time, but probably last fall when he was working on his empennage, and that was cool. And I've been wanting to go back out there again. And you've probably noticed I've got these 2 motorcycles on my garage now. And Tim's maybe 30 minutes away, which actually means we're kind of neighbors. Everything's kind of 30 minutes away out here where we're at. But it would be a kind of a fun ride to do. But right now I'm working on both of those bikes, and so they're not ready to roll out. So I was stoked when he shot me a message and said that he was going to come over. I learned a lot about his experience with the aileron, and if you watched that video, you'll know that he makes some pretty important remarks about the very specifically described sequence that the plans tell you to construct the thing, and at least one what Tim feels like is an obvious error in that sequence, and I'll find out for myself as well. But I'm glad that he kind of walked me through that and talked to me about it. So, because for sure I would have, I mean, you saw what I did the other day, putting the flat brace and the gap fairing on without. So if there was an opportunity to do something in the wrong order and make a mess, that's certainly something I would do. So maybe Tim has spared me some aggravation later on in the week when we get into it. Yeah, so it was great to be able to have a discussion right there in the shop with another builder. That's exceedingly rare. Like literally, that's the first time another builder has come visited my shop. And, you know, I went and saw Tim's shop maybe a year ago. So hoping to do more of that. And we also talked about, maybe the idea of doing a little bit more with our little media stuff between my channel and his channel. Playing around with the idea of maybe taking a crack at doing a little builder podcast, so we can, share ideas, snafus, talk about our respective corners or walls of shame, and also talk about other things that, has been asked recently about, for example, engine and prop choices and where you get your information or inspiration for those sort of things. So anyways, that's something I'll start fooling around with probably in the next week or so, from the sort of launch and logistics standpoint. And then we'll probably get a few episodes in the can, see what we think of it, and decide if we're going to put it out there. It's a great thing about that. Well, and YouTube too. They're both really low barrier to entry sort of things. So, it could be fun. I like talking about this stuff, obviously, as I sit here and do this voiceover. So, out there, just spraying on that self-etching primer on there. And that's going to be it for this evening. I'll let that stuff dry overnight. And tomorrow we'll get back into it. With some skin prep, dimpling, probably back riveting, getting some assembly done. See ya.